All right, my friends, let's build us a VPN. As mentioned in the previous video when I showed you the network topology, also mentioned that the far end of the VPN has already been configured with the same defaults you're going to see here in a moment in CCP, and there's no use in building one end of it and then testing it because by definition there's no way a VPN that's just been built on one end is going to come up. So we're going to finish it up here. You're going to see the exact same steps that I did on the first router off camera, and then we can actually go ahead and test it. Now we do have another option here I'll just mention briefly: create a secure GRE tunnel, GRE over IPsec. That's not going to be on your CCNA security exam. They're concentrating on site-to-site VPNs, I would think, because they're much more common. But if you were studying for the previous version, that was on there, but it's a goner now. So if you missed it, you didn't miss too much. Now, let's talk quickly about this definition they give us here, because I know the print is very small. Use this option to configure a VPN tunnel from this router to another VPN device using either a pre-shared key or using digital certificates. To complete this configuration, you must know the remote device's IP address. If a pre-shared key is used for authentication, it must match the pre-shared key configured on the remote device, which makes perfect sense. Otherwise, what's the use of having the keys? When you use the quick wizard, which is what we're about to do, that pre-shared key versus digital certificates is about all that you're going to have a choice of doing. You'll see that in just a moment. And we've also got a pre-shared key of spiders ready to go on there. So let's go ahead with quick setup. As it just mentions here, quickly, peer device must be configured with identical VPN config for the tunnel to work. If you choose the quick setup, they define it here. It asks for minimal information. It uses Cisco CP defaults. This is recommended if you're using a VPN tunnel between two Cisco routers using Cisco CP at both ends. Step-by-step wizard, we'll come back and take a look at that after we get the VPN up and running with quick setup and just show you a couple of the options, but nothing in there that's going to be earth-shattering or really puzzle you the first time you see it. This might, though. Here are your default IKE policies, and it looks like one giant policy. And it fooled me the first time I looked at it because I thought, well, this is all fine, but why is there just one big policy, and why does it have encryption twice and the hash twice and the Diffie-Hellman group twice? Well, these are actually two different policies. Here's one and here's the other. They're both 4 lines long. And the only difference between the two is that one is going to use digital certificates, that's the RSA SIG, and the other uses pre-shared keys, which of course it just says pre-share. So we'll just go ahead and close that up. Just wanted to run that by you because it threw me the first time I saw it. And here's our VPN connection information. It's select the interface for this VPN connection, and this is talking about your local router, and we know that's going to be fast 01. You can select either a static or dynamic IP address for the peer. It's rare you're going to pick dynamic IP, but you might. And here's static, and that's what we're going to use. So we know the address on the other end is 210.1.110. Pre-shared keys, like I said, a pre-shared key already exists with this peer. If nothing was here in this field, you could just go ahead and type in whatever it is. Also, of course, you have the option for digital certificates. So there's your options: pre-shared keys, digital certificates. We're going with PSK. And here's the traffic to encrypt. Here's the interesting traffic that we mentioned. And what we're going to do, it's the 00 interface where traffic to be encrypted originates. That's our 10.0.0.0/8 network. And then destination, enter the IP address and subnet mask of the destination where encrypted traffic terminates. And the destination for our traffic to be encrypted is 172.168.0.0 and a subnet mask of 16. And it's going to give you a nice little clean list right here. It shows you the interface, the peer device IP address, the authentication type. Notice the pre-shared key does not appear. And it's not going to appear when you type it in either, so it's just not appearing, period. Hopefully it's working. If you type it in correctly, it will. We've got our hash, our DH group, authentication, encryption. Here's our IKE policy. Here's our transform set. And here's our IPsec rule that we came up with. And we're just about done. So let's go ahead. We will check test VPN connectivity after configuring. Hit finish, and here's all the info. Here's the access list it's going to drop on it. And let's go ahead and deliver. I'm going to do a save. And that was fast. Now, since we checked, start troubleshooting or, test the tunnel after you configure it, this window is going to come up. And there's not going to be anything in it, which can throw you a little bit because we don't have any activity yet, and hopefully we're not going to have a failure reason. But here's our interface, here's our peer, and you just click Start. And you can see we're getting a lot of check marks there, but we're getting one really ugly down at the very beginning of it. And that's just not necessarily the case. And you're going to see why in just a moment. Because I can tell you, of course, that really throws you because you spend all this time in the lab and you're building it and you check the tunnel status and you're like, what do you mean it's down? Do not despair yet. If all of these other fields are checked, and those fields are interface status, checking the configuration, checking routing, peer connectivity, NAT, and firewall, and I should have pinged 210.1.1.10 at the beginning of this lab. I didn't do it. Shame on me. But the CCP did it for me. And it's going to say, do you want to debug it? And here we get Cisco CP will enable router debugs and generate tunnel traffic to determine the cause of the VPN connection failure. This process can take a few minutes and may affect router performance. Do you want to continue? Yes, I do. Excuse me. Then we're getting the debugging window. And nothing to be intimidated here. It's simply showing you the rule VPN traffic on this connection is defined as. And you can see it's traffic going from 10.0.0.0. I know the ones are there, but it's an 8-bit mask here. So anything going from our inside network to the other end's inside network is going to be VPN traffic. You have two choices here. The choice that I hardly ever pick is I will generate VPN traffic from the source network. VPN traffic can be generated by invoking an app that generates traffic on the VPN network. This can be done from any host in the source network. Enter sufficient wait time. Well, I would rather just tell Cisco CP to generate VP traffic. And what it's doing, it's simply an extended ping. And you've probably seen those in your studies. I'm pretty sure I show you those in your NA studies as well. And this is another time when extended pings come in handy, because you can define not only the destination, but also the source. So that is pretty cool. That's the only way we can really test this. And let's go ahead and put 172.168.1.1 because we know that's a host on the other end. And we'll continue. And you can see VPN troubleshooting is successful. The VPN tunnel is up. So when you see tunnel status down at the beginning, the tunnel is going to be down because no interesting traffic has been generated yet. And like I said, the first thing it's like, oh man, the tunnel status is down. Well, yeah, the tunnel status is going to be down because just because we've got it in place, that doesn't mean it's up. What brings it up is that interesting traffic, and we've got to generate some of that before we can say yes or no, is the tunnel working or is the tunnel not working? But believe me, the first time I worked with this, I'm sure that was SDM, Security Device Manager, which is end of line now, but it had a lot of things in common with CCP. First time I did it, all you're concentrating on is that first thing, checking the tunnel status. Like, what do you mean down? This is a simple config. And I worked with it and did the troubleshooting. It's like, oh, okay, that's perfectly fine. Let me bring up that one. No, wrong one. Let me bring up TerraTerm here. I'm going to bring TerraTerm up here because I had this open on the CCP router, and it's certainly not that we have to know everything going on here, but you can see when it started building the tunnel, there's a lot going on here. Let me spin down here because then I was looking at the config, and there we go. And you can see, here's ISACEMP being turned on. That was early in the process. And, you see the name of the transform set here. You see the local proxy, remote proxy. Those are the networks we had involved. You can see that it's sitting idle. And then it's sending packets to 210.1.1.10, which is the other end of the line, when it was checking connectivity. And then finally, once everything was up and running and started working, you can see that our security agreements started to get created, that kind of thing. Again, it's not something where you have to go through everything in here But that is all the information you're going to get. And on the other side, there was probably actually more of it. So a lot of stuff going on there as far as your VPN going. But again, don't let tunnel status down depress you, because once you troubleshoot it and send some interesting traffic, then you'll find out if it's really working or not. Let's see, you can always save the report too. That's another feature, and it's even titled VPN Troubleshooting. And let's see, anything else in there? Details. And you can see in here what it's actually doing, because when it's checking interface status, you know, it was checking these things off. There's the interface status. It's just making sure that it's up. Checking the config, it looks at your crypto maps, your IPsec config, your peer, your transform set, interesting traffic. And you can see it's saying peer configured, transform set configured, interesting traffic configured, valid. This is hard information to leave out in the GUI in CCP, because if you leave it out, the CCP is not going to let you go. But when you look at the manual configuration for VPNs, I mean, I've built them, but it's pretty easy to leave something out if you have it right in front of you. You know, policies with pre-shared key authentication method configured, and so it's just checking out everything for you. Then it's checking out your routing. You know, do you have a route to the other side of this tunnel? You know, do you have it? It says routed through the crypto interface, so you're good there. Checking your peer connectivity, and then even checking NAT and the firewall to make sure that it's not botching you up in some way. So that is really it now of this with CCP, but I want to show you one handy feature, because I know during the theory discussion, copy of what you put on this router, you want a mirror copy. And there's a handy little button right here called Generate Mirror, and it's going to give you the mirror configuration for this peer device that appears here. Really, that's it, and I like it. You know, if Ike policies and transform sets supported in this router are not supported in the peer device, the mirror configuration. But that's pretty rare. And again, here's your mirror config, and it always says, you know, in big letters, must not be directly applied that way, but you can just enter it manually as well. But again, these days, you can see this entire line. It's really easy to get one little thing wrong or miss something. And frankly, I really enjoy using CCP VPNs. Doesn't bother me a bit. Now let's take a look very quickly here, just at the step-by-step wizard, and it's going to give you a lot of the same prompts. Let's see if it's going to let me do that. Yep, 0, 1, and I'll just go ahead and put the same information on. There's line. Here's where you can edit your proposals, and it even goes on to explain Ike Proposals. They specify the encryption algorithm, authentication algorithm, and key exchange method that's going to be used here with at least one of the policies listed below. So here's what you can do. So that would be fine. Edit that one, you just highlight it, and this will come up, and you can change any of these fields that you want. You can change the encryption, you can change the hash, you can change it back to digital signatures, you can change the Diffie-Hellman group, and also the lifetime. And this is kind of handy because it does have hours, minutes, seconds. You're not converting everything to seconds like you'd have to at the command line. So you just do a quick cancel there if you don't want to edit anything. Then if you wanted to add a new one, and we talked about the rules about the priorities and the numeric order, you'll notice this one's already marked priority 2, so it's one higher than the other one. And it's going to go in numeric order there, of course, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. But if you wanted to name them 100, 200, 300, you could do that. And it's just the exact same thing. You know, choose the authentication you want, the Diffie-Hellman group, etc. And if you hit next from there, you're going to get the same deal with the transform set. You know, and you can't edit that one, but you can add one. Then you just hit next from there. Then there's the traffic to protect, you know, local network, remote network, and create, select an ACL for IPsec traffic. So it's all a little more complex. And of course, it's going to make you do that. So I'll go ahead and cancel out of there. But that is the key, no pun intended. If you use the quick setup, that's going to be fine for a lot of your VPNs, and literally once you get used to it, it takes you 10-15 minutes to build one tops. But if you need options like that, go ahead and take the step-by-step wizard. But nothing wrong with quick setup at all. I like it. So that is a great tour then of CCP for site-to-site VPNs. We built one. We saw the choices in both the quick and step-by-step wizard, and you know how to test one. So that is it for the VPN section. Let's go do something else.